this is Sarah SoiledPlant. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to show you all of the propagations I have going on, and I will probably do a pot up at the end of this because I have a few of these that are very ready for a pot. I'll start off with the plants that I'm propagating that I will not be potting up today. The first one is going to be this Philodendron Plaumini. So this one, I just got a new leaf and it's starting to unfurl. It's almost all the way done unfurling. So this particular plant did have a little bit of a root structure. I took it off of a mother plant, so it needed to recuperate and all of that, and I have it in this pot here. It's doing pretty well. It seems to be very happy in this sort of Lechuza pond, which is, you know, just a Lechuza variety of leca. So it's in basically a bunch of little rocks, and then you water it from the top. And it's doing pretty well, and it's rebounding and growing and doing all right. Since I've put it in this container, it has grown 2 leaves. So at this point, I would say, like, it is no longer a propagation, even though that's the intention of it, but it's no longer a propagation, and now it's an actual plant with a nice root system in here. So that is my Philodendron Plaumini. Next, I will do sort of a similar thing here. This one is actually a straight up propagation. This one is a Maranto lemon lime that I cut off of my mother plant, which is sitting right over here. This one, it had a very long gangly bit that seemed to not really fit with anything, so I cut it off and put it in this Lechuza pot with the same thing as the Plaumini, but this one I put in with no roots, kind of to see how it would do. And it's doing all right. It's got new growth here, but it does not look very good. This might just be, you know, the trials and tribulations of being a freshly moved plant and all of that. This is the first growth I've seen off of it. So the fact that it doesn't look great does not dissuade me yet, but it does look like it is sustaining. So at the very least, it is not dying. So I'm not sure if it has roots or anything yet, but I do know that it's sustaining itself and it isn't losing any of its color or vibrancy. I do know eventually with this one, the plan is to give it to somebody, pass it on to a family or friend, something like that. But I want to make sure it has decent roots and it can have some healthy growth before I end up giving it to somebody. My idea behind using a pot like this is so that you can make cuttings and grow it, you know, healthy like an actual plant, but when I eventually give it away or sell it or whatever, what have you, I can sell it bare root and reuse the pot in the future for future cuttings. So that was the plan, and I wanted to see if it would work for a Maranto like this, and it seems to be doing okay so far. Aside from the bad new growth, I will reserve judgment until the next couple of leaves come out to see if this is a chronic thing, if this is a fluke, or just an adjustment. Another one that I'm not potting up, and this one is not in the cutest container here. This is just in a cup with some sphagnum moss, and this is what's remaining of my Monstera albo cutting. I'm gonna try to hold her up a little bit. There we go. So that's what I have left. There are 2 nodes on this cutting. It's doing all right. It hasn't grown. There's no roots on it yet. I'm hopeful. It's not rotting and it's not shriveling, so it's doing okay. This is just a waiting game. I've had it for about a month, maybe a little bit less, so it's got plenty of time to grow roots, and I've seen little bumps and nubs come up, but nothing poking through yet. So I'm hopeful. I'm not sure if this is the right mechanism, so I might transfer it to a different propagation setup than this one. It's sustaining it, and I think it would do well in here. I just kind of want to be able to keep a better eye on it, and I'm not a big fan of this as in for appearance reasons either, but it is doing fairly well. By no means ready to be planted or anything like that. I'm gonna wait till it has a decent root system and a leaf before I plant it in soil. I will keep it in spag until that point. Like I said, not very interesting to look at, but it is still alive, you know, so that's my update. It's alive, I'm determined to grow it into a plant. I have not given up on it yet. Now, the last one that I'm propagating and not potting up today is going to be this water propagation that I've got going on right here. This one is mostly full of Cebu Blue. I have my Cebu Blue in my shower, and when it gets too long, it starts kind of getting in the way in the shower. So whenever it gets too long, I make some cuttings and I propagate it in water usually. It's got some fuzzy roots coming in already, and some of them are fairly long and doing well. The only other propagation I've got in here besides Ciba Blue is I've got my type of Scindapsus is the Aureus style. It has the smallest amount of silver on it, but I really, really like the pattern. And I've got 2 stalks of that. It got a little leggy, so I decided to propagate that and maybe put it back into the plant. Most of these Ciba Blue, some of these are going to go back into my plant as well, because there's about 6 of them in here, so I might do like half and half or 2 and 4 or something like that. Lastly is all the plants that I plan on actually putting in soil today, or at least most of them. So I'll start with these two propagations in here are from the same plant, which is from my Monstera Adansonii. So I'll insert a clip here of what my Monstera Adansonii looked like before I chopped it into tiny pieces. I cut all the way down to the stems right at the soil line. And this is the plant that's been popping up. This has plenty of roots in it, all of that, so I don't plan on putting any of these propagations back into the pot because there's probably not a ton of room. And this one is already growing back very, very well. So it had 2 little stalks at the bottom here. And this one already has a nice leaf on it with a growth point right here. And then the other side, it has this nice big leaf right here with a growth point. So this one is going to just be its own plant, self-sustaining, all of that, and it'll be nice and happy and grow a big long vine again like the last time. So that one's nice and happy. And all of those long vines I had, I ended up chopping all of them off, taking all the leaves off aside from the very, very ends, and put them all into these 2 containers. I put them in 2 containers mainly because I had so many nodes that they wouldn't all fit in this large one. I also wanted to test out if certain areas in my home were better for propagation. This big one I ended up putting into my greenhouse, which I think did a little bit better. This one, I just kept it in this container and put it in front of my south-facing window. They both did just fine, and they have plenty of roots, so... Oh, we got a cat. Hi, Maggie. What are you smelling? It's just a plant. Come on. This one was in my south window and this one was in my greenhouse. I would say the greenhouse one did better. These both had leaves on them already, but this one is actually a brand new leaf. None of the other ones are really even close to matching this one for growth. So it's not like this is a representation of how good it is, but that's kind of the extreme example, whereas the other one, you know, they all have roots as well. So no matter where you do your propagations, it just might take a little longer if you have less than ideal light, but it'll still grow and you'll still have a decent success rate. But if you want to optimize, you know, success rate and time it takes to root and all of that, then you might want to give it kind of really, really good light. Also, with both of these, I didn't put any heat mats or anything like that, and I used the saran wrap to keep the humidity in, and I would check it about once a week for the dampness of the sphagnum moss, and if it was a little light on dampness, I would actually spray it with my mister. So these I'm definitely going to pot up today, but I wanted to show you the roots. You see all these roots in here? They're just traveling all along the bottom, and all these little lines are all roots. So this is very, very happy. Give you a little closer shot here to see all those roots. It's insane. So it definitely needs to be potted up. On this one here, it's very similar. This one's a little more humid, so it's kind of harder to tell, but it also has a ton of roots down here, which you'll be able to see when I take them out. I would guess that I would normally want them to have leaves and things before I plant them. With how insane these roots are, I feel like I don't really have much of a choice. And then the last thing I have that I am propagating is some of the saved pieces from my string of hearts. This one was a heartbreaker, and I'm working on rehabilitating it in sections. So this here was actually an attempt to save part of my plant, and most of it died off. I had, like, that's a heart there that's all moldy and shriveled and dead. So I tried planting a whole bunch of bulbs and things like that, hoping that it would sprout, and it didn't. I'm just going to take these and plant them into this one since it's a little sparse, and this one strand here is doing very well. But these ones are all rooted for the most part. I think this itty bitty one that looks dead, yeah, this one here did not root. But all the other ones, it looks like they have, and they're doing fairly well. I got some flowers on the string of heart strands, which I know is very common. They flower quite often. So I don't view that as like a miracle or anything, but it is a good sign that it is trying to survive. So I will be putting these into this pot. So I think I will do that one first, and I will just kind of give you some story time on how my week's been. So to give you some insight as to how I was propagating these, they are very top heavy, side heavy, whatever you want to say. They want to fall out of the water. So what I did, and I kind of did this on the seat of my pants, was I made a little grid of Scotch tape. So I had tiny holes, and once it was in the hole, I would like slightly, just slightly on the edge, tape the stem to one of these, you know, openings that I had. And there was one in particular that was still way too heavy and the Scotch tape couldn't hold it. So I ended up using a bobby pin, and I stretched it out a little bit so that it wouldn't hold onto the stem too tight, just so it would, you know, keep it in a nice strict line. And then I put it into the bobby pin, into the water, and then tape the bobby pin to my grid. When I did all of this, it was very much like I had no idea how hard it was going to be to keep it in the pot. I was just kind of like using whatever I had on hand, and it worked really well. And in the process, of course, I have to detangle all of these to keep them separate so I can plant them separately. This week has been a little bit busy, and I usually film on the weekends or, you know, early during the week, and then I will edit during the week and upload on Thursday. Well, this week was a little crazy. I have a new dentist, and I needed a deep cleaning done, which I'd never had before. My old dentist was a very subpar, so I had to go through my first deep cleaning. If you're not familiar with what deep cleaning is, they have to numb your mouth, like actually in my case give you shots, because they have to clean under the gum line, and you bleed, and it's all, oh, it's awful. It's very necessary, and it helps prevent gingivitis and things like that. In true string of hearts fashion, all of the roots are also intertwined, so I'm probably gonna have to take all of these out at the same time, but that's all right. I will figure it out. I had that dental appointment earlier this week. I was very tender, and I could only eat out of one side of my mouth because they did all the cleaning on one side, and then tomorrow I've got the other side that I'm cleaning, so I wouldn't be able to speak if I was filming tomorrow. And this weekend I actually chose to be social for the first time in a long time, and actually hang out with some people, and we went to a park nearby and just went for a walk, and then another friend, it was, you know, we just played board games and stayed in and then had a bonfire. So it was, you know, very, you know, responsible, nothing crazy, no big parties or anything like that. But this weekend, because I was doing that and trying to be social and, you know, for my own mental health and all of that, basically didn't have time to film. And I thought, oh, well, I'll just film on Monday, or I can film on Tuesday. Well, Tuesday I had my dentist appointment, and Wednesday I've got my hair appointment. I basically don't have any evenings without being in utter darkness, which is great, because a few days ago I finally decided to splurge and get new lighting. So even though it's dusk and the sun is setting, I've got my lighting on, so hopefully this looks okay. Okay, so this string here, the root is itty bitty. Like super tiny. I would say it's like it's not an inch by any means. It is literally just, I don't even know if you can see that. But the fact that you can't see it just shows how tiny it is, but it does have a root. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually try and put this in my other propagation, and hopefully it won't fall over. So that works okay. It's probably not going to get enough light over there, which makes me nervous. I might move that later. But these two stalks combined have that many roots. Yeah, so this one here, it has roots on 4 different nodes by the looks of it. It's got one here, here, there, and at the very tip. So this one I'm gonna have to have a pretty decent sized hole for that to fit into. And this one here looks like it's coming from 2 nodes. I think that's 2. There's a lot on this end, so it almost looks like there's 3, but I think it's only 2. Yeah, back to my story. So basically, you know, I've had a very, very eventful week, I'll say, with a lot going on. And I had a lot going on last week. Work's been kind of busy and taking up some time, and I'm not getting home as early as I'd like. I have a lot of projects that are in the works right now. I'm going to take some of these very dead roots out and put them in this little cup here just to get them out of the way. Because I definitely tried to plant a few bulbs and things, and they did not survive at all. I'm just kind of taking out the dead stuff that didn't make it. I feel like that's probably bad, is to have rotten roots next to healthy roots. I don't know, is that a thing? Like, does root rot, obviously if it's part of the plant, it affects the plant because it's attached to the plant and that's where the nutrients come from. It can't come in through the rotten roots. But if you have a bunch of rotten roots just in the soil next to a healthy plant, that doesn't affect it, right? I've managed to make quite a large crevice here. So I think I'm actually going to put this large one, because I have enough space for these roots right in here. So I'm going to kind of gently fold them in here. The soil is fairly dry. It's optimal to plant things when the soil is either slightly moist or dry, so that it's easier to move around and easier to manipulate. And then you want to water it right after you plant. All right, so that one is in and happy. That's this growth right there. So I will start on my second little hole for that one. So I was all excited about going to this park this weekend because it had a conservatory on it with like some tropical plants and things, and it was a nice like old conservatory, and it's super cool architecturally. And I was very excited to go check it out and look at it and see all the plants and everything, you know, take pictures, all that kind of good stuff. But when we got there, the conservatory wasn't open, and I was super bummed because the website and everything said it was open, but clearly it was not. So that kind of bummed me out, but it was such a beautiful day this weekend. The summer is almost over, and I was glad that I got to walk around and, you know, just be warm, you know, in the sun, looking around, wearing my sunglasses, and, you know, just kind of having a good time, seeing birds and all that kind of stuff. You know, it was super nice. And then after that, I wanted to go to this used bookstore because I have a book about houseplants from 1968 that my parents gave me, and I love it, and it has such good advice in there. They had some treatments and things that had such cool ideas, and the best part is I love the photography that's kind of like a older photography style, older photographs. Just the look of them is very cool to me. But even aside from that, some of these older books have like hand-drawn pictures of flowers, diagrams, things like that, and they're just so beautiful and inspiring, and they're great, like, I want to say coffee table books, but that kind of pays them a disservice. And that is that. So instead of one little tiny strand, this is the one that it had, and it is growing. Got a little bend in there that doesn't look great, but it does have new growth on the very end, and the little pod in the center is doing well. It's got some sprouts here and there. But these are the 2 from my water propagation that are already tangled up, and they look super happy in there. So I will be able to set this one back in front of the window, see how it's doing, and then when that other one grows its root a little longer, I will also add it to this, and it'll almost be a full plant again. It's so crazy, because I had 2 gigantic full plants, and now I've got like two itty bitty scraggly half dead plants. But that's how it goes, and I am determined to rescue it because I figure if I can rescue it, then I can take care of it in this case. So I never want to be the rescuer, but I will do it if it means learning and keeping my plants, because it took me a long time to find this plant in what I consider a reasonable cost. Because I was finding them all over the place, but they'd be plants, you know, this size, but not even as long tendrils, and they'd be $40. I'm like, I'm sorry, that's unreasonable to me. And if that's reasonable to you, that's all fine and good, but I was determined to find ones that were a little bit cheaper. That one is all finished, so I will water it as soon as I'm done planting this other one. I will set her kind of right there off frame a little bit. Now before I make my soil and everything, I want to see what I'm working with these Adansonii roots. So let's take a look here. I'm trying to figure out the right way to take these out. I don't feel like there is a right way without just uprooting the whole thing, right? Or uproot? That's not uprooting. Well, I guess it is because there's roots and I'm upping it. So we're gonna uproot all of these nodes. So that's how many nodes I had. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18 in this bowl here. But I'm pretty sure everything in here is rooted. Yeah, every single one of them has roots. Very cool. All right, I'm going to just kind of dump this, because I'm going to have to pull all of the spag off. Oh man, this is going to be ridiculous. Okay. Alright, so I'm getting some movement. That is such a weird feeling, like pulling roots off of glass. That is so friggin' weird. Ooh, so let me try from this side, kind of go at it from different angles. This one, nice and easy. Okay. So I've got some along here that are a little stuck. Oh gosh. And they don't really want to let go of the glass. So I'm going to kind of coax it off. I think it got too dry over here compared to the rest. Because I had, in order for this plant, or this leaf to stay out, I had a little opening here. So I think this section got a little drier than the rest. So it's kind of a little rougher shape on the root here. Okay, that's everything. So I'm going to lift this out. Ooh, oh my goodness. So I'm going to take the spag off piece by piece. Back to my bookstore. So I wanted to find more books that reminded me of the book that my parents got me, or that they had, because it was actually a book that they had from when they were married, and I think it was one of these like books that they bought or were given it for their wedding. I wanted to find more books similar to it with like the nice pictograms and all that kind of stuff. I found quite a few. I found some really old books that were from like the 1920s and some other from the 1930s. The one from the 1930s is actually a Japanese flower arrangement book. It's kind of like a little capsule in time almost. But it's very cool. All the photos in it are black and white. It is so hard to tell whether this is sphagnum or root. I keep thinking I'm pulling roots off. Like, I'm not pulling roots off, it's just sphagnum also has a nice satisfying snap sound when it breaks. That sounds like roots. So every time I hear a little snap, I kind of cringe and think I'm killing my little propagations. And it's almost completely dark out now. This is so not entertaining. You know, I had this idea in my head of like, oh, I'll just take them out and plant them, and this is going to be extremely tedious. Question of the day. If you've made it this far, thank you very much. You're like one of the 20% of people who've made it this far. But if you've made it this far, what do you think? Should I reuse the sphagnum or not? I would probably default to yes, because as long as you don't have any bug issues or anything like that, I can't imagine why you wouldn't be able to reuse it. But let me know if there is a reason. Should I like bake it in the oven for a little bit just to kill any bacteria or anything before I reuse it? Because sphagnum's kind of expensive and you use quite a bit of it when you propagate.
2,000 years later.
Now we're ready to pot them up. So I have 2 pots here that I'm going to use. So both of these are terracotta. This one is kind of more of a like soft brown color, and I love this color so much. And then I have one that's just kind of like your standard terracotta. I've got my soil mix all mixed up and ready to go. If you're curious what soil mix I use or how I put it together, I will leave the info in the card. I also have all of the ingredients I use in the description below. So all the links in my description are for Amazon, and they are affiliate links. So if that makes you uncomfortable, that's completely okay. Don't worry about it. You don't have to use them. I found with especially the things I use for my soil mixes that Amazon switches it around a lot. I don't know if anyone else has noticed this, but when it comes to specific soil mix ingredients, they jump in price all the time. Like the coir I use, or coir, whatever you want to call it, coir. The one that I use, I was able to buy a 3-pack for like $15, $10, something like that, something fairly reasonable. And when I went back to link it, all it had were packs of 20 for that brand. Don't know why that is. It's a complete mystery to me. If you're looking at my description stuff and you're like, what in the heck is this about? Trust me, I have no idea either. I figured I would still put it in there with the exact brand that I've been using because I do like it and think it is a good quality product. I don't know if in the future they're going to offer smaller container sizes. I hope so. Just for my sake, I don't want to buy 20 packs of those. And plus, like 20 packs is also $40, $60, $80, whatever it is. You know, I don't want to pay that for that many. It'll take me 17 years to get through it. I have no intention of rebuying it if it stays like that. But in case you're curious why I'm linking something with 20 packs of coir, it's because I wanted to show you the actual brand I use. I didn't want to link something that I don't actually use myself. So I wanted to be honest about that. Hopefully that makes sense. I'm gonna try to pack these at the same time so I can kind of arrange them as I need to. I'm trying to put all the ones with the really long roots in the deeper pot at least, and the really big thick roots. And then some that are good size but aren't insane root structures, I'll try putting in the smaller one. Difficult to get. Oh my gosh. Did that whole... that whole root structure just broke off of this plant. Look at that. This whole thing just came off. This one's gonna go right into my water propagation over here. Because what else am I supposed to do with that? I'm too far gone at this point. There's no time for sorrow. I think the big one is done. Now let's see if I can squeeze all of these. Don't think I'm going to be able to do it. I might have 1 or 2 left over. Actually, is there only 2 left? Oh, I'm going to make them fit. As I'm finishing this up, this is a little tedious, and I'm just, you know, slowly backfilling. So what the plan is after this, I'm going to water it, see if the soil displaces at all and leaves any holes or gaps or crevices underneath. And then from there, I will backfill. I will make sure that there's more soil on top. And then from that point, once the soil's filled, it's watered and everything, I will make sure to water this more frequently than I would if it was, you know, a normal rooted Adansonii, because I want to make sure those roots have a fighting chance in the soil. So going from the transition from sphagnum to soil, I want the transition to be as easy as possible. So I will make sure that the soil stays a little extra damp for the first probably week or 2, right around there. I won't go crazy, of course, because I don't want there to be root rot. I just spent a couple of months making sure to make these little roots, so I want to make sure they do not rot on me. I want to give you a little gander at what it looks like before I water. So on this one I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 of my cuttings in this little one. I made sure to pick ones with smaller root structures so that it would fit in this little pot. But this has 8 of them. And the big one here has the remaining 12. It's got this big, long, huge worm guy and then a couple other pieces. So I will water these and make sure that it has enough soil in there after I water. And we're done! Finally done with all of this. So it's been a little bit of a slog, but I really appreciate that you've watched to this point. If you've made it this far, you are officially my hero. It is pitch black outside. I need to water these, put them back, and make myself some dinner, and then shower and go to sleep and start the day tomorrow. It has been a very good, productive Monday evening. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and I will catch you next time. Bye!